Hello, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Adoption of AI for Early Drug Discovery, Challenges and Opportunities for CROs, presented by Syngene and Fierce Biotech. My name is Janelle Karimoto, and I am delighted to introduce this webinar. Before we begin, here are a few housekeeping items. To learn more about our speakers, please visit the speaker bio window, and you can view additional resources in the handouts window. If you accidentally close any of the windows, you can reopen it by clicking its name in the top navigation bar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand within 24 hours. And finally, please submit your questions as you think of them via the Submit Questions window. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers from Syngene. Joining us today are Dr. Shubhendu Mohanty, Head of Chemistry, Dr. Achintya Das, Head of Computational and Data Sciences and Digital and AI Center of Excellence, Raj Patra, Head of Digital IT, Research Services, and moderating the discussion will be Dr. Santosh Patil, Section Head, Medicinal Chemistry. All right, we are ready to start. Dr. Patil, over to you.
Thank you, Janal, for introducing us. Hi all, and thank you for joining us today. It's time for panel discussion. You could submit questions along the session, and we would answer it at the end of the session. As you all know, AI in drug discovery has moved from being a promise to something we are all actively trying to implement across the value chain. Let me start with a broad question to set the context. We keep hearing AI is transforming drug discovery. Where across the design, test, make, and analyze cycle, is it genuinely making a difference today? And whether it is still more hype than reality? So Dr. Das, from your experience, which stage has the highest AI potential to transform preclinical drug discovery cycle right now? Is it target identification, validation, hit identification, hit to lead optimization, or lead optimization?
Santosh, when you look at AI in the preclinical space, the hype that you're talking about has been around. AI will be transformative. We'll get 10x productivity increase. It will be cheaper, faster, etc. But if you look at realistically where AI is being used today, so in understanding early biology by integrating multimodal data, that's where I think AI has played a great part. In fact, that's where AI has traditionally excelled in, being able to put together different kinds of data, make sense of that. That's something it's doing very well. When you're looking at hit ID and virtual screens, that's no doubt about it. AI has enabled doing that at scale. The jury is still out on in the lead optimization phase. Not so great, I would say incremental. The biggest challenge, of course, is just after that. When you start to go into the preclinic, that's where how to translate the early biology or the biological hypothesis to efficacy. That's where AI has traditionally suffered. And it's not because it has any limitation. It's just because of a fundamental problem with trying to explain biology with AI. So is it transformative yet? Not yet. Do you see incremental benefits across the pipeline? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Das. So what I understood is early in the drug discovery cycle, AI has impact, but towards the clinical side of it, we have to see and how it goes. So that brings to the next question to Dr. Mohanty. Has AI changed chemistry executions? Or how do you foresee AI impact on productivity and efficiency in CRO context?
Yeah, thanks, Santosh. Like Achintya was saying, there are paradigms of the drug discovery, the stages where AI we have seen has greater impact there, right? So from a chemistry perspective, there are two components that are there, right? So one is the design component, and then one is the make component that is there. From design component, obviously, with AI, what it helps is like instead of making everything that you can make, can we select the components that we need to make? That the triaging part gets better with AI. And from a synthesis perspective, also with the use of retrosynthetic tools that we have, makes it a bit easier from a design perspective, from synthetic design perspective there. So all in all, it does quicken a bit about the way you think about a project, but obviously it has its own caveats that you need to keep in mind as you are using AI. So that's
Thank you, Dr. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mohanty. Raj, question to you. What are the infrastructure perspective to make AI work in CRO setting?
So I think it's a very relevant question, Santosh. In fact, some of the points that Dr. Das and Dr. Mohanty were also quoting. In a CRO setting, making the AI work is not just about deploying a plethora of tools. It's also about considering the foundational model or the infrastructure layer that is scalable, secure, stable, and also interoperable. Right? Here at Syngene, what that means is we are gearing up ourselves for different type of model training approaches. We are also trying to consider high performance data pipeline as well as the way in which we also set up those complementing infrastructure. And also the way in which we are also setting up the API pipelines that connect the various components between the lab systems and the AI products we are talking about. We've also significantly invested in different type of data format standardization across instruments and databases because AI can only be as good as strong and clean your data pipeline and feed is, right? So infrastructure is definitely an invisible enabler, but when it's right, I think it will create the bedrock of a layer which works fast, but is not visible to the end user, rather it is experienced, right? So that I think from a CRO setting, that's how we see it.
Yeah, absolutely, Raj. And that's really insightful. And what's coming through clearly in that is AI is starting to deliver value, but only in a specific contexts where the right condition exists. So that's what I can summarize from panel discussion so far. Now let's dive deeper into the AI technology. As you all know, AI in drug discovery stands on 3 pillars: algorithm, subject matter experts, and on quality data. Let's begin with the data first. How we manage the data becomes absolutely critical, especially in CRO settings. So Dr. Das, how are you looking at the data from CRO perspective?
So, one of the things that I share, especially when, technology enablers come to us, is that, CROs are sitting on enormous underutilized data sets and, they can really make it work. That actually is not true, especially in the discovery phase. Remember that the data that we are sitting on or we generate are mostly for clients. So it's not data that's owned by a CRO. So that poses a challenge. That said, you could do various things. For example, AI is not only for molecule design, right? AI can be used for study design, for process optimization. Now that's data that CROs actually can excel well because we generate a lot of that, and we can really use that to optimize processes, be it discovery, development, or manufacturing. Yeah. I also think that CROs will start generating proprietary data, especially in certain areas. For example, we are generating proprietary data in the NAMS area because we'd like to get a head start there. And that might also be a business model. I'm hearing from a lot of organizations like ours, where they are generating a large pool of data in certain areas, which they can then monetize. Either it will differentiate, it will differentiator for them, or they can license the data to companies that can, benefit from that. Then, when we start using AI, I look at it as a problem where you have a combination of a foundational model and specific models for customers. So a CRO typically like us would have foundational models. We use federated learning to enable us to use that specific to a client project. There could be partnerships in certain areas. We've had situations where clients have come together to pool data for a specific purpose. So all these are feasible. Of course, there has to be a clear contractual framework under which we operate.
Thank you, Dr. Das. It's clearly that data belongs to client. However, there are ways around it. For example, federated learning, as you mentioned, very insightful, Dr. Das. Dr. Mohanty, I'm moving to the chemistry. In classical medicinal chemistry programs, we come across small set of data. Either they belong to a client or to a particular program. So how one can build a client or program specific AI models that are just with such a small set of data?
So the thing is that we never train from scratch on any small programs there. So obviously we start the toolkit is transfer learning and fine tuning on the pre-trained model that we have, right?
Yeah.
So again, so what we see is that as we progress with the DMTA cycle, every DMTA cycle is designed to be maximally informative. So with each cycle, we train the model, and it gets better with the data that is generated there, right? Yes. So that's the approach typically we take. The model is built, and that it evolves with the program as we generate more data there. So that's the perspective. That's the approach typically that is taken in such situations.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mohanty, on the insights on data. Moving on to the next pillar, which is subject matter experts. As you all know, even if you solve for data, the real question is, how does this translate into scientific decision makings? What is the role of subject matter expert here? Because AI needs subject matter experts and experiments to create value. Let's look at the real drug discovery programs. We wonder where exactly does the AI recommend stops and where subject matter decision begins, right? That's a classical what we do. Do we have clear boundary to define our workflows? So Dr. Das, in your computational workflows, at what point does a model output become a go or no go for scientists to act on without further interrogation?
So I don't think models should be used autonomously, which means you can't just use AI models and ask AI to take decisions. I know we keep talking about that. Now there's a lot of hype around agentic AI, and you can put agents to do various things. But that human in the loop is actually important. AI can do the predictions. AI can build a hypothesis, but there still needs to be a expert to look at that and then decide which one to take forward. Remember, we are in a space that's highly regulated, and we're talking of human health. AI is certainly not there yet, where you can ask it to take autonomous decisions. So the human in the loop is critical.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Das. So moving from design to make, this question is to Dr. Mohanty. As a chemist, when do you trust an AI suggested molecules enough to synthesize it without further modifications?
I think rarely with zero chemistry input there. So I think I was talking about it, right? So it's not like anything is suggested, it works, right? So why, human in loop is an excellent concept, an excellent way to look at things, right? So the point is that the solution that comes out, you actually validate that, whether, how precedented that is, and whether it is validated by orthogonal ways, orthogonal methods there, right? So you look at that, you think that you have your chemistry expertise there, and then you decide whether to make it or not make it there. So it's never like it's very rare that you make what is coming out of the AI design without validating that from your experience, or from orthogonal methods.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Monti, on the insights onto the subject matter expert role. So this leads us to third pillar, as we discussed, which is algorithm. Talking about it, Dr. Das, is there a meaningful difference between classical time-tested physics-based modeling versus AI/ML algorithms?
Yes and no. So
Yeah.
is there a difference between them? By definition, yes. But you'll be surprised how much of physics-based modeling AI is enabling today. So if you look at that, hit ID to lead optimization. Today, you tend to use more AI-based models at the beginning during the screening stage, and as you go toward lead optimization, you start to use methods like free energy perturbation, etc. However, if you look at how AI being used today, AI is being used in conjunction with AI for active learning, where you could build your scoring function using physics-based methods, learn from that, and then use that in AI. There are problems in physics, especially in quantum mechanical methods, where those are computationally too complex or expensive. And today you can actually use hybrid models by combining AI to make that feasible. So actually, it's a judicious, it is a hybrid approach today. And actually, AI is helping apply physics-based methods more.
Yeah. So what you are saying is it's not really applied physics versus AI/ML algorithms. It's just applied physics and AI/ML. So they are working together. Thank you for the insights on algorithm, Dr. Das. Dr. Mohanty, has AI algorithm measurably improved the quality of your lead series or primarily the speed?
Yeah, so let's take a step back, right? So what has AI done, right? So it has expanded the chemical space beyond what a chemist would think of, right? Because you are biased towards your experiences, that you are biased towards the chemistry that you are using. What AI has done is that put all those things in perspective. So it has expanded the chemical space there, right? We talked about this a bit earlier as well, that instead of deciding what you could make, the point is that what are the compounds that you need to be making that moves your project forward, right? So that's the question that it boils down to. And what AI does is actually in that space allows us to try the compounds that you want to make, which are the most important compounds that will move the project forward. So the speed, definitely it has improved there. And in the process, I mean, it's difficult to quantify the quality component here, but but you can see that the quality has also improved there. So from a definition perspective, to answer the point that you're asking, that speed is definitely something that has improved. Again, goes into the paradigm that Asita was mentioning earlier. In certain cases, it is probably more reflective than in some other cases. Quality, definitely there's an impact, but it's a bit difficult to quantify that the way we do stuff now.
Thank you, Dr. Mohanty, on your insights onto the how the three pillars of AI, which is basically algorithm, subject matter experts, and data, are empowering drug discovery in terms of speed, efficiency, and quality. Although you mentioned that quantification is still a challenge. Let's move from the technology now towards adoption in real world. In the reality, AI adoption in CRO isn't just about technology problem. It's about people, culture, and commercial problem, as we all know, right? So talking about what are the implementation challenges? So Dr. Mohanty, in your chemistry team, what does resistance to AI-assisted workflows look like on day-to-day basis? Is it trust, habit, or something else? What worked well and what needs to be improved?
Yeah. So it's an excellent question, Santosh. So I think it's trust, habit, And also the fact that chemists have an intuition that this is what good looks like, and so sometimes it is a bit difficult to make that change unless you make it unless you design it in a way that it comes in the workflow there, right? So that is critical there, right? And like anything that is new, change management is always a challenge there, right?
Absolutely.
And the point is that if people start seeing benefit of using the models there, once you implement the process, that you integrate that in your workflow, people will start seeing that the advantages of using AI, right? And there will be early adapters. So when you have success with the early adapters there, it's easier to show to the broader team that see this has been beneficial there, and that helps in broader adaptation of the whole initiative there. So it's a combination of multiple factors, but it will take a bit of time. But what we see is that people are getting more inclined to use AI. And what we'll see again going forward is that the folks using AI will probably be better placed than the folks not using AI. So
Right.
I think it will take its time, but it will eventually happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Das, for nice elaboration, specifically on the change management. So that leads to next question to Raj. What does change management actually means in CRO setting? What worked and what failed?
So I think Dr. Mahanti also touched upon some very interesting aspects, right? So I think in a CRO setting, the change management is less about technology rollout, but it's more about the trust building, right? With the scientists who are skeptical but also want to do the right thing, right? So I think for us in a CRO setting, which really worked was that we started identifying the problems that scientists usually find it very frustrating, repetitive data entry or slow turnaround on any analysis, the efficiency, and then linking it to any of the AI initiative or a product that can become a solution to their brain or the problem statement, right? Not a threat to their expertise. And that is in fact leading to that mindset change, showing the value, connecting to the value, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
I think what's failed is definitely always taking that top-down approach. I think that can only work in certain settings, not always. But I think as Dr. Mahanti also touched upon, it's more about adaptation, right? I think adaptation, right? So how do you also start socializing it? So pushing the tools without them having a say in the design element will only lead to abandonment, right? I think they don't have the skin in the game, right? So I think changing that paradigm. We've also learned that taking that train the trainer approach or having those champions identified early on will rather create more catalysts and more proponents in your long-term game, right? So I think those are the things that actually worked and where it actually had failed. But then overall, I think as Dr. Das and Dr. Mahanti have also clarified, I think we are really trying to find ways to accelerate our adoption so that the change management is a lot more easier. We don't have to talk about the change management, but it's rather experienced, right? So that's how we're doing it.
Absolutely. So with the change management, we really want to go towards fullest real-time implementation. So that questions to Dr. Das: how does AI-enabled capability will lead to implementation, to its fullest in real scenario?
So I think it's something I learned early on in my career. In the days of molecular modeling, we had the same issue. There was when molecular modeling started in its infancy, there was skepticism. There was resistance to models. What changed that, according to me, is when we started deploying models or those tools for medicinal chemists to use themselves, and then they started to see, how can I benefit from that? So the first thing is, how do I democratize AI, which means the models that we build, the workflow that we create, how do we deploy that so that, for example, a medicinal chemist can test out their hypothesis on that without depending on a computational chemist. The other fact is that AI cannot stay as a separate group. It has to embed it in your workflows. So rather than thinking of the DMTA cycle, you now start to think of the DMTL cycle. So that learning on the project, learning from the data is integrated into the cycle itself. So by doing that and having the scientists actually work on the hypothesis themselves, you would actually gain maximum benefit from AI. Also, adoption will increase because people will then start to say, how do I use that realistically in my workflow?
Yeah. So you are suggesting to move from the classical DMTA cycle to DMTL, where you introduce the learning concept, and that will lead to good adaptation of AI. Yeah. So that moves to next questions and set of questions. Even when adoption starts to happen, right, it brings new kind of tensions. On one hand, AI promises speed and efficiency. On the other hand, as you mentioned, Dr. Das, earlier, that drug discovery is a high stake and science-driven process and highly regulated. When getting it wrong is simply not an option. So the real challenge becomes maintaining the scientific control and confidence even as we accelerate the workflows. So Dr. Mohanty, has an AI model ever led your team towards something you knew as a chemist was wrong? And in that situation, what really happened?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So yes, it does happen. So from a synthesis point of view, for example, the retrosynthetic software sometimes give you suggestions that's from a chemistry perspective or defies the laws of chemistry, right? So that's the way I phrase it. So you need to be cognizant of the suggestion that comes out, and then see the practicality of that from a chemistry perspective there, right? So and the same goes from a design perspective, depending on how the model is created. So sometimes, for example, it flags it prioritizes a compound that has an obvious metabolic liability or a tox liability there. So an experienced medicinal chemist will see through some of those things, right? So the point is that you use your own judgment there, but also fit the information back into the model. So that's the other way to keep improving the model. So just being conscious, then feed what comes out to keep refining the model as we are working through this.
Correct. So Dr. Mohanty, you mentioned a very good point, right? Where the chemists struggle sometimes when the AI predictions are wrong, and how do we go around? So that leads to the next question to Dr. Das. How do you make the model more interpretable enough that a scientist can interpret a prediction rather than just to accept or reject it?
Yeah, good question. So there is a lot of effort and thought going into what's called explainable AI, just for this purpose. But there are practical things that you could do to make AI or predictions more amenable. Look at what do we do with traditional screening results, for example, or docking results. You don't present that as numbers, right? You start presenting that in set of interactions or trying to draw a hypothesis which will make more sense.
Absolutely.
You do the same with AI. Now, if I'm predicting something or I'm generating some hypothesis, presenting that or using analysis visualization tools layered upon that, which can now try to explain the SAR, try to use that in conjunction with other decision making tools that we have traditionally used to ask a few questions. Does that design or that prediction make sense? Now we could also use traditional rules to learn from medchem. If it is antibody discovery, from traditional antibody discovery rules that people have traditionally followed, you can say you can overlay over that and say, okay, does it make sense? It may not always make sense, but then you
Yes.
also start to try to explain if this were true, then what are the reasons for it? You can always present that in certain in that way by enabling the right tools. Sometimes, like Shubhendu was saying, AI can come up with crazy molecules way beyond the chemical space. Now, I can either present that to you as a molecule and say, go figure it out, or you could do some analysis, some way about why do you think this makes sense? Either a possible way to make it. It may be totally wrong, but at least if I put that out, it sets the scientist thinking, and that will help better adoption, better appreciation.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, it should be two-way communication between scientist and AI, and it should go back and forth. That will lead to better adoptions. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Das,
I mean, like I was saying, just like I said, AI should not stay as a separate entity. The data scientist should not be sitting separately and just churning out predictions and feeding that in. It has to be a team.
Absolutely. So moving from the science to the now regulatory, Raj, from your regulatory perspective, how do you build appropriate limits around AI? And that's a tough question. I'm putting on spot, Raj, to you.
That's a great question. And in today's context, we must have come across so many examples where sometimes AI has gone rogue, to the examples Dr. Mahanti also mentioned about it's doing some kind of crazy stuff, to how Dr. Das has also mentioned where we really need to be careful, right? So I think from an technology and infra standpoint, I think how we look at it and how we approach it is we build the governance within the system architecture itself, right? Not specifically keep on adding those add-on layers and do like a patchwork, because that doesn't work necessarily. So this automatically means you are preparing yourself for an architecture which maintains full audit trails for various type of inputs, for various type of outputs, the versioning that you do, the changes that you make. So even if when a regulator asks, you're able to trace it clearly, right?
Absolutely.
And when we are working closely with our scientific and quality teams, I think we are very clearly also defining from a governance perspective which are the AI outputs that we can inform the decisions to be taken autonomously, and which are the ones that a human in the loop, like how Dr. Das had also quoted earlier, can be linked to, right? And which is a very important element from a regulatory standpoint. How do you also demonstrate that, right? So the underlying principle that we follow here is that AI is used to accelerate the workflow, but then the human accountability anchors it, right? So that our systems are designed in such a way that it's fully accountable and visible to an auditor as well, right? So it's auditable, it's always prepared, right? So that's how we bake in the regulatory controls.
Absolutely. So it's like all about architect, human in the loop. That's the great concepts. So now that will lead to good adoption for sure. So now moving from the AI adoption strategies to real world scenario, we go to forward-looking questions. If tools, workflows, and decision makings are evolving, then naturally the kind of talent we need is also changing. New graduates arriving, knowing the AI tools, but they often lack deep lab intuitions, as we all know. So, Dr. Das, when hiring for new initiatives, what's the ideal profile you're looking for? For example, a computer scientist who learned biology, or a biologist who learned AI?
Neither, actually.
Okay.
So, in my experience, trying to teach biology or chemistry to a computer scientist, and vice versa, trying to teach computer science to a biologist or a chemist, while that enables better appreciation, doesn't work typically on projects. So I prefer to create pods of subject matter experts, data scientists, bioinformaticians as a group to execute projects. Now, while doing that, over time, there will be some cross learning and people will start getting the experience. But a little learning here doesn't help. So I'd rather have three experts working together rather than trying to teach people to do all the three.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to bring, experts together and then let them cross learn from each other. Very good insights,
Yeah.
Dr. Das. Dr. Mohanty, do you trust a lead series shaped by AI as much as one shaped by chemist intuitions? When both look good on paper?
If both look good on paper, I will probably give them the same weightage. But the point that I would look for is like provenance. So in AI, what I look for is that is it getting into any new areas or new ideas that is there, right? So that's what I would look for. And from a chemist perspective, chemists have a bias towards a specific scaffold based on their their experience with certain things. So
Absolutely.
I don't think it's this or that, like Ashita was mentioning earlier, and we talked about it earlier as well. It's about combining the two aspects and see what's the right thing to be done for the project. So it's always debating the two aspects and figuring out that what is it that you would think would be best for the project right now? What are the molecules that we need to make there? So it's not this. Everyone have its bias there, so we just
Absolutely.
need to.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Dr. Mohanty, is the bias where we should be watchful, and we should always try to have the new things, to add to the discovery. That leads to the next question, Raj. Are entirely new roles emerging in your digital functions that didn't exist 3 years ago?
Oh, that's a great question. The answer is yes. I mean, what kind of existed before has now getting transformed into a lot more newer roles and responsibilities, as Dr. Das has also touched upon. I think we have been constantly trying to see how we place people close to they understand the business today, right? So, for example, within my team, we are already looking at digital business partners, right, to the traditional IT application support analysts. We have dedicated AI/ML engineers or data stewards or data scientists or even roles like this which never existed before in a company like Syngene, right? So I think we are increasingly looking at roles within the digital IT functions who are not just central IT function but who are also closely sitting alongside our scientists today, are able to understand and help drive the adoption using new age technologies like AI, right? I think it's more about people who understand both sides of the world, meaning let's say the chemistry of the biology world as well as the engineering side, and then are able to drive some of those principles on the security, governance, and even infra in order to bring value, right? So I think we are rapidly growing and evolving. We are also looking at how we best place people in a role that brings a lot more impact, a lot more value, and which also ties together with the objectives that we are trying to sit together. The traditional IT model definitely is getting increasingly eroded, as we can also see how different type of organizations are also evolving. Syngene is also on the similar lines, right? So the lines are also getting increasingly blurred, right, between IT and science. So I think it makes sense for us within DIT to define roles which are more in line with this ethos, right? So yes, certainly we are introducing and having roles now which never existed before.
Absolutely. So what's coming through clearly is that AI is not changing the tools, it's reshaping how work gets done and the kind of talent we need, right? So that's what the discussion is all about. But ultimately, everything we discuss, let's say data, workflow, decision making, adoption, even talent, must translate into client value. Because in the end, if it doesn't change the client outcomes, it doesn't scale. So let's close by looking at it from commercial perspective, and that brings to our last question. And I will let's just elaborate on that. Is AI enablement a market differentiator or extra value addition proposition, right? Towards it, Dr. Mohanty, what do you think in client conversation? Is AI a differentiator that closes a deal, or is it still nice to have, that doesn't move the needle commercially?
So from a discussion point of view, it
Yeah.
is definitely a differentiator because it talks about the scientific maturity of the organization, right?
Yes.
But whether it is helpful or not, that doesn't end there, right? So it's about, do you have demonstrated ability to, what we talked about earlier, case studies that we have shortened the timeline
Right.
here, help in identification of a hit series, novelty, speed.
Yes.
So all
Yes.
those things become important there. So while it is a conversation starter, that does not guarantee that leads to a particular engagement or collaboration there. It has to be backed up by clear demonstrated ability to make a difference to projects there. So that's the way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about demonstrating the clear differentiation. It just should not be a just starter of the conversation, but at the end we should take it to the conclusion. Rightly mentioned, Dr. Mohanty. So Dr. Das, are client setting realistic expectation about data quality when they want AI-enabled programs?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So we typically have two kinds of approaches when clients come to us. I mean, in general. So there are these, the smaller companies typically come and say, "Do you have AI?" And they'd like to engage with you in a manner where they expect AI to get their project right the first time.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what the data quality is or where the data came from. The expectation is that you get it right the first time, which is a challenge, and we've faced this a couple of times. Then there are the slightly larger companies. They have typically looked at CROs as a test bed for AI to see what works and all.
Yeah.
The expectation there is unrealistic because it's not that we've got quality data to train on. So to expect us to build models on publicly available data or generate data ourselves to build those to get AI up to up to a place where it will be reliable is also slightly unrealistic. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Now, CROs will react differently. Some people might tie up with companies that are doing that, or some may proactively generate data. So each one will have their own strategy. But yeah, today the expectation from CRO on both sides of the coin, they're slightly unrealistic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Das. Thank you, Dr. Mohanty and Raj as well for wonderful insights. That brings us to the close of our question and answer session. If I sum up, we discussed that AI technology from data, domain expert, and subject matter expert viewpoint. There are three pillars. Then we also discussed the implementation and adoption of AI from the people, culture, or commercial perspective. And if I step back and connect the dots from everything we discussed today, AI in drug discovery is not just a technology shift. That's my understanding. It is system level transformation involving data, workflows, decisions, people, and business models. And I believe the organization that succeed will not just be those with the better AI technology, but those who integrate AI seamlessly into the how science is practiced. So that leads to audience questions. I am seeing some questions here, but for those audience who are not yet submitted your questions, please do it so now. For audience questions, I give liberty to panelists. Please feel free to choose your question. All right, the first question. 5 years from now, how do you foresee the differences between the CRO that has successfully integrated AI capabilities and one that has not?
So I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So since we're talking of preclinical here,
Yeah.
I don't think there is a choice here. Imagine a few years from now, we are able to get better with the predictions and designs. So you start making molecules, lesser molecules. The AI now coupled with automation will also drive efficiencies in the lab. So that combination is going to disrupt the current, the traditional FT the lab services model. So I don't think there is an option here, both in operations as well as design. All CROs need to adopt AI. Now, to what extent will depend on their business model or how they want to address this problem. But I don't think there is a choice here, and I think Shubhendu can add to this.
Yeah, I was about to do that. Thanks, Asita. So I think Asita is absolutely spot on this. I don't think there's an option for not integrating AI into your workflow 5 years from. I think the companies who do not integrate AI into their workflow will become obsolete. Now the question is that if everybody has done that, where the differentiation is coming from? So differentiation will come in from how effectively have you integrated AI into your workflow, and how good does that work with the things that we just talked about, right? The human in the loop thing. So do you have a team that actually, bring in their own learnings with AI there, right? So we talked about I think I was mentioning earlier about the scientists that are there, and then there are data scientists that are there. How effectively can you integrate those two components there, and the success there, right? So who has learned more with the adoption of AI there? So that will be a differentiator.
Yeah, thank you. So human in the loop is, the buzzword all audience can take from this session. And then moving on to the next questions. India is known for cost efficiency in discovery. How does AI change that positioning? Does it strengthen or dilute the cost advantage narrative?
So
anyone can take this?
I can take this one. So what AI is doing is to move from a cost arbitrage to value addition kind of, right? So that's what it's going to do there, right? So it's not about how many chemists you are putting at what FTE rate kind of thing, right? It's about how fast can you move the project there. So that's what is going to be important, right? So it could change two things, right? So the way the deals are structured now between the CRO and whatever the biotechs or the pharma industry and there, right? So today it is based on number of FTEs and what a FTE costs. So it could move towards a output based conversation there, output based business model there, right? Because everyone asks that you have to integrate AI there, but that comes at a cost there, right? So again, the thinking would be that how do you actually pay for that one, right? So the stuff that Raj talked about, right? So the value would be important there. What value you are adding to the project, and maybe the model will change from just FT driven to an outcome based kind of a business model.
Thank you, Dr. Mohanty. So from the business, let's move to the science. So are there areas of biology or chemistry that are inherently AI resistant? Means AI cannot penetrate?
It's probably very bold to say it cannot penetrate, but
Yeah, okay.
there are areas where it's challenging as of now. So now can AI be used for target ID? Yes. Can you design molecules? Yes. Can you predict translatability to clinic? The answer is no, as of now.
Yeah.
So this might change in the future, but today there are the translation biology that remains a challenge, and that's being addressed by other methods. AI does support it now, but this might change in the future. I mean, it remains to be seen how that changes. But yeah, that's the greatest challenge, and that's one of the reasons why many AI-driven hypotheses have failed as you progress them.
Correct.
While we got designed right, that efficacy in clinic is something that we could not predict effectively.
Yeah, thank you. I think audience has started putting few more questions, but I'll take last one, and others we can answer back to you guys. So last one I'm taking from the prospective young talents. So is the talent pipeline producing what AI-led drug discovery needs? And how are we filling the gap? If there is this talent pipeline we don't have, how are we filling the gap in CRO setting?
So talent in this area is a big challenge. We've historically struggled with this. Can you find people who are trained with some basics? Yes. But do you have scientists who can actually come in and, like Shubhendu said, work seamlessly in a project with scientists? That's the place we have challenges. I'll give you some examples of how data scientists look at a problem versus us on projects. There was a collaboration we are discussing with a renowned university here, and I took to them some problems in biology or chemistry which were challenging. And as I said, if you got a machine learning model that's 80% accurate, why do you need anything more? And I had to try to explain that 80% accurate overall is not good enough for me. I need it actually applicable on the project. So how do we address this? We typically use the Syngene Training Academy we have. So we do take smart freshers from various disciplines, from people with chemistry background, people with biology background, people with data science background, and I put them through few months of training, exposing them to what we need. More importantly, explaining to them the limits of applicability. One of the things that modelers forget is that you input something, you are always going to get an output. But to be able to explain what your limits are, to work with your team and say, I don't think we should be using this. For this, we need additional data. These are the kind of insights that we need to train them on before they are ready. So yeah, talent is a challenge right now. The way we are filling it is by having the appropriate training in-house.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Das. So for the audience here, we have Syngene Training Academy, and Syngene is always looking for the bright talents. So please make the full use of that opportunity. So thank you all for insightful questions. We will answer your questions by email. Thank you, panelists, for thoughtful responses. We learned a lot in this process, and I hope this discussion has further given everyone a clear perspective on not just a potential of AI in drug discovery, but what it really takes to make it work in practice. With that, I would like to hand it back to our host to close out the session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohanty, Dr. Das, Raj, and Dr. Patil. And thank you to our audience for your active engagement. If they were not able to answer your specific question, we will do our best to follow up after the webinar. As a reminder, a recording of this session will be available on demand within 24 hours. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.